This is Jonathan Cruz, creator of EpicWords.com, and you are listening to Roll for Initiative podcast.
Correctly with the correct amount.
D20 Radio, where gamers roll.
www.d20radio.com. Roll for Initiative.
Welcome back to the Roll for Initiative podcast, issue number 32, for the Roll for Initiative podcast, rfipodcast.com. There's our website. I am one of your hosts, DM Vincent, along with DM Jason. Jason, how's it going?
Hey, it's going great. How are you doing?
Wonderful. And we have DM Nick as usual. DM Nick, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Vince, Jason, how you guys doing?
We're super.
Super?
Yes, as we're bouncing off a wonderful episode of Psionics, my brain's still hurting from that episode. What about you, Nick?
No, I took a couple of Excedrin. I'm happy.
Actually, I liked one of the forum posts that went up from last that said, your mastery of psionics must have worked because after listening to it while jogging, I got a headache.
Oh, boy. Speaking about the website, do we have any new articles up this week?
Well, what's going on right now is Todd Hughes is working on his module. So I believe +2 to save is coming a little bit more slowly in between. We've still just got the more human than human. But there is a new article that's going to be up soon from PC Buzz, and it is called Tetrahedral, Isles of a Car. And I won't say any more about it than that. I'll wait for it to be up.
Cool. I can't wait to read that. Our forums are starting to pump a little bit.
Yeah, it's really good to see all the activity going on there.
That's right. A lot of people were posting up. Death Metal Nightmare is up there. Chuck is up there posting away. People were asking questions, leaving comments. The more you do, the better it is.
And I want to say Death Metal Knight said that plenty of Repulsion and Sepultura is okay, so we're going to keep that pumping right here.
Cool.
And yes, we do frequent the forums quite a bit, and we try to answer questions. At least I do, and I know I've seen Jason's name. I haven't seen Nick too much. But,
yeah, I've been a little busy with some other things.
Sorry, I had a little cold there.
Oh, you know what? I want to point out that one of the forum posters, I think it was Chuck. Mm-hmm. Chuck is the first of the forum posters to have moved out of the Prestidigitator class and into the Evoker class. So everybody else has got some catching up to do because Chuck has leveled up.
Chuck has leveled up. Wow! Did you make
Chuck has leveled up?
Did you make those titles yourself, or?
Well, I mean, Gary Gygax did originally, I suppose. I just took them out of the.
I see.
Yeah, I'm just giving people magic user titles as they level up.
What if they want to be a cleric or fighter? Too bad.
Too bad. That's I can only do some titles.
Only D4 hit dice. I hate that.
Yeah, but Nick,
I like the titles for magic users. They have the coolest titles.
They do. But Nick, your title's going to be cleric with a blunt weapon, so. Anyway, so
funny.
Go to the forums, rfipodcast.com, and there's a button at the top that says forums. Go right to that and post away. We want to hear your comments. And as we spoke about in the last episode, Jason and I did a little brief thing about, we had some special merchandise going on in the store. Some free, I think it was a freebie, right, Jason?
Well, sort of. Freebie with purchase. What they're doing, because we do all of our merchandise through Spreadshirt, who I chose because they're kind of like the Cafe Press, but it's a much higher quality. I like what they do better. Right. And they have introduced laptop sleeves and netbook sleeves. So from now till October 1st, which isn't very long, but a couple of days still, they're doing a deal where if you buy $40 worth of anything, you get a free laptop sleeve. So you can do that. We've got a link to it on our website. And right now, I put the artwork up for the laptop sleeve. It took a couple of days to get approved. Right. So there's just going to be a short window of time when you can get one of those free with a $40 order, but they're going to be up. I mean, and they're really not that much to begin with. I think they're like $16 or something, maybe 20. I forget what, but I mean, really inexpensive to begin with.
Is this all new original artwork or the same logo?
Well, it's the same logo. I had to convert it to black and white and mess around with it a little bit for it to go on a laptop sleeve. So
any size laptop sleeve, or is it a certain size format?
I think. Well, I know there's a netbook one that'll fit. Those little kind of 10-inch netbooks, and I'm pretty sure that the laptop sleeve is for 15-inch laptops. Wow. There might be different ones, so I'd say go and take a look first, and make sure it'll fit.
Okay. No one-size-fits-all laptop sleeve, huh?
Well, no, it's supposed to be like a tight fit on the laptop, so I think it has to be for certain sizes.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, well. All right, so go over there, take a look at what we got, and if you feel like supporting the show, go ahead and pick something up. If not, then don't worry about it. We'll head over into Sage Advice.
Sage Advice.
All right, so for Sage Advice this week, we've got some voicemails to listen to. So, Vince, why don't you cue us up?
All right, the first one we got is from Les. Here we go.
Hi, this is Les, and I have a question for the Grognards at the RFI podcast. I'm playing an illusionist, and one of my primary spells is, of course, Phantasmal Force. Now, the saving throw is special, and later on in reading the description of the spell, it says that basically any believing creature will be affected, and those who choose to disbelieve will be given a saving throw. How do you determine whether a creature is disbelieving or not? Should people in adventuring parties just walk around saying, I disbelieve that door, I disbelieve that wall, until proven otherwise? Any help would be greatly appreciated. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Well, if they're in my party, they do exactly. That is what they do, actually.
Yeah, they do that all the time. It's like, I disbelieve that, I disbelieve that. Oh, really?
Yeah. So basically she's asking, is it fair for a character to run around saying, I disbelieve everything? I mean, no.
No.
Well, kind of. I mean, I treat it a little bit the way, and anybody who listens to the actual play podcast, which will be going up probably tomorrow, I think. We've got a whole bunch of them queued up. Sorry. We'll kind of see what's happening there, because where my players are going through right now, there were a fair number of illusions, so they got a little bit paranoid about it. And they've been trying to disbelieve everything. So first of all, I try to treat that sort of the same way as looking for secret doors or checking for traps. I just tell people, go ahead and roll if you want to do that, and if you succeed at your roll, let me know that you succeeded. So just so that I don't have to go through the whole thing where they constantly say, I'm checking for traps, and then I tell them to roll, and then they tell me what they got. They know what's going to happen, so just roll. So disbelieving is the same sort of thing. If they want to disbelieve, I hear them roll a saving throw, and they go, I'm disbelieving this, and they roll the saving throw, and if they make it, then we see what happens.
Interesting. Nick?
Well, that's... I don't know how to explain this, but if your players' characters go around disbelieving everything, I mean, if an orc comes up and stabs you with a sword, it's hard to disbelieve that.
Well, yeah.
I mean,
it's hard, but you could try,
that's
because
a really, really good illusion. So.
Well, but it's a legitimate one, because a phantasmal force could actually. I don't know about a full-on orc. The whole action or anything, but getting stabbed with something could be a phantasmal force illusion, and it would do damage to you if you failed to disbelieve it.
That's true. I'm just. This is where we're getting into an area. At least I think it's really hard to. I mean, to determine. I don't know. It's so difficult. I mean, I would think that the character would have a reason to disbelieve something when they see it. It would have to be something, I don't know.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think if you're going in for the first time to a dungeon or a cavern or a house or whatever, to just start disbelieving everything all the time sounds a little silly. But your players are going to get tired of doing that anyways. I mean, if they're, it's like I said, it's like checking for secret doors, checking for traps. If as a player you're so paranoid that you're checking everything all the time, you're just going to get tired of it. And no DM is going to, I don't think any good DM is going to sit there and actually fill you with so much traps and illusions and secret doors that you can't move 2 feet without worrying about it. I mean, they're going to be a little bit, if you're doing good dungeon design, you're going to have a reason for things to be somewhere. You're not going to just randomly throw up illusions. So, I mean, I think that's kind of where it comes into it. So, where my players are going through right now, there's some illusions that are placed in fairly logical places. They're not obvious, but now that they've been in these catacombs for some time, they're kind of getting used to how they were designed, and they're thinking, you know what? Given what we saw before for illusions, I think this could be the kind of place where they would have done one. And so I have no trouble with them saying, this smells fishy to me. I don't really think there's anything there.
Oh, sure. Like I said, if they've given reason to believe that there is an illusion involved, they can have a chance to disbelieve it and have their save, versus spell. Or save versus spell, right?
Yeah, save versus spell.
Yeah.
And the thing is that there's different bonuses you can give for that. So
based on intelligence, right?
I don't know. Well, sure, just the standard saving throw bonuses. But if, for example, I think both of my groups have gotten through this room. Yeah, so I can talk about it. There's one of those kind of typical Indiana Jones leap of faith situations where there doesn't look like there's a bridge, but then you step out and there is a bridge.
Oh, right.
So once the first person had determined that it was okay and went and stepped onto this illusory missing bridge, everybody else got a +4 bonus to save because it was obvious that something was happening.
Makes sense. Yeah.
And I even give the illusionist in my group, I do give him the occasional bonus just because he seems to really be role-playing the illusionist really well, and he's talking about why he thinks things are there. So from my perspective, it's a legitimate reason to give him a couple of points on his rolls.
Well, you can always do as well. I have to say this as the resident evil DM alongside Nick. You can always for those wisecrackers out there that keep disbelieving everything, you let them make the roll and say, "All right, you disbelieve there's an orc there," but actually have the orc stab him and be like, "What? I thought you said it was disbelief." Well, you disbelieved it. It didn't say it didn't disappear or not.
Oh, I've done stuff like that before too. Oh yeah.
Let them have their way.
Okay, that's kind of. But I try not to get them with the word games. I mean, if I try to tell them what they're really seeing.
The word games are so fun, though.
Try to disbelieve that pain with that longsword sticking out of your head.
Yes, that's right.
Well, as they were trying to disbelieve, because all of them were convinced that there was no wall where there was in fact a wall. So I was kind of subtly encouraging them to just take a running start at it.
Yikes!
But they didn't. But I mean, the thing is, so this gets into the whole what happens when you disbelieve and it fails or succeeds. Different illusions work different ways, but Lass was asking about phantasmal force, which is special because those illusions have a physical element to them. They can actually hurt you. So even though, let's say that you have a floor that is actually a pit filled with spikes, but there's an illusion of a safe floor above it. No, that's a terrible example. Let me give you the opposite example.
Okay.
Because that's a good one to bring up, but that's a little tricky. Let's give the opposite example. Let's say you have the illusion of a pit with spikes, but in fact it's a floor. Well, even though the first character might disbelieve, successfully save, and be able to walk safely across it, now he knows that it's just a floor. The guy right behind him who just saw him walk safely across but fails his saving throw will still fall in and get stabbed on the spikes. Because he failed the saving throw no matter how much he wanted to believe that they weren't there, and he saw somebody walk across, the illusion was stronger than his saving throw, he still got the damage.
The power was stronger than he was.
Yeah, the power of the mind to create the damage in the character.
Sucks being him.
Yeah, definitely.
That's why Phantasmal Force it's a really easily abused illusionist spell. And that's the other thing is where do you put limits? Where do you guys put limits on Phantasmal Force?
Oh gosh, I don't know.
I don't put a limit on it. I just go with the situation. If it sounds too outrageous, obviously you're not going to do it. But
like what, for example?
I don't know. I'm not in the situation at the moment. Give me something that sounds outrageous.
I mean, I was just thinking if let's say that the illusionist actually, is there a limit to Phantasmal Force to the size of the illusion before I make some ridiculous claim here? Now I just realized I don't have my. There it is. There's my player's handbook. Let's take.
Yeah, I don't have my player's handbook on me either.
Because I was about to say, well, what if the illusionist wants to create the illusion of a mountain in front of someone? I mean, can they go to that level? I mean, that can't be the case. Let's actually look, because for goodness sake, it's a first level illusionist spell. I mean, yes, it's a third level magic user spell, but still, there's a range which is 8 squares and an area of effect. So yeah, I mean, it can only be so big. So yeah, you can't create a mountain. But you're not going to, as far as I'm concerned, create a 15 hit dice monster illusion in front of a character and have it actually be as powerful as all that.
You can make it look like one. There's got to be limits. Make it look like one.
Yeah.
Yeah, but to have it do the actual kind of physical damage, let's say, to put up a black dragon and have it breathe fire on the player and have it do actual breath weapon damage, I think I don't know. I think there has to be limits. A first level illusionist should not be able to do things like that.
Maybe.
Okay. Well, I don't think the first level illusionist should be able to do things like that.
Is there? Well, I don't have the spell in front of me as far as the description, but is there does it improve as far as the levels that when the caster goes up?
Let me pull it back up because I just
maybe just duration. I don't know.
The range goes up per level. The area of effect goes up per level. The duration. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, it's creatures not observing the spell effect are immune until they view it. Can create the illusion of any object as long as it's within the boundaries of the spell's area of effect.
Okay.
I mean, from
sounds like you can go pretty much.
Yeah, you really can. But here's the loophole that makes it really easy to deal with. Is that all it does is create a visual effect. It doesn't
create audible
or anything else. So if you have a red dragon staring you in the face and you don't hear it, you don't smell it, and you just see it, then that's a pretty strong indicator that you're either deaf and you've lost your nose, or it's an illusion.
Yeah, but also don't forget, everybody relies on their sight first for everything. So if you see that dragon there, you're like, oh crap, you're gonna run. So
yeah, exactly, and that's where the saving throw comes into effect, because maybe the character was quick on their feet, and even though the first thing was, I think of like when when you're driving late at night and you've been awake for way too many hours and you start seeing things. You guys ever have that? Okay, so you know what it's like to have a visual illusion kind of hit you, and even though you know that it's not real, it still has the power to scare you, which is why you should not drive when you're that tired, because you could really get scared and swerve the car or something without thinking. And the same sort of thing, Vince, what you're saying. Yeah. If this dragon appears in front of you, you're not going to stop and think about whether you hear anything. You're going to just drop your sword and run.
Hightail it out of there. Yeah. Well, yeah. Maybe if you're like a experienced fighter, you might go, "Oh crap, it's a dragon. Wait, I don't hear anything or smell anything. What's going on?" as you're running away.
Yeah, and like perfect, and hence the better saving throws as you level up.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
So that's a good question.
Let them disbelieve. And as far the other thing I think she was asking was, what about the monsters disbelieving? And I would just play it basically as a DM, play it like you're playing a character.
Yeah.
And if you think that monster is intelligent enough and has had experience with illusions or has any reason to disbelieve it, give them the saving throw. But don't just give it to them automatically.
I agree.
Word. All right, let's go to our second voicemail tonight. This came in from Jason. Came in from your line, right? The callback voice.
Yeah, this came in from the one that's you click the Google Voice and it's there. And
all right, cool. Let's hear this one.
This is DM John in Kansas City. I was wondering, how is running a convention game different than a regular one? Can you give me some tips, such as using pre-generated characters, choosing an adventure, character level, materials I may need to provide the players, and managing the limited amount of game time? Basically, what makes a great convention game as opposed to a poor one? I've never even played in a convention game. In my area, the convention that's coming up only has 4th edition D&D scheduled, but I think they'd be willing to have 1st edition game if someone was willing to run it. So, since I've never played, I would like some tips before I take the plunge. Love your show, and keep doing the good work. My email address is...
Cut that.
Yeah, I stopped it before.
Well, I've had some experience with this running convention stuff.
Yeah, so have I.
So
Jason,
I would
Gen Con, the big daddy of them all. So
yeah,
that was fun, right?
Yeah. Go ahead, Nick.
I would say from my experience from doing convention, either tournaments or otherwise, the first thing you got to do is, I would say, when he's talking levels, I think the most fun would be right around 5th through 7th level. That seems like the most enjoyable at a convention when you're talking as far as D&D is concerned.
Well, for the one he's talking about, I would agree with you. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if you want something where it's, the player characters are not too powerful, but
won't die the first hit.
But there's still definitely some challenge involved. I would say 5th through 7th level is probably the best.
And I think Frank Menser said it the best when we interviewed him at Gen Con, was try to keep it between 2 and 4 hours and have a resolution and don't leave the players hanging at the end.
Right.
That's the biggest thing. Yeah. Absolutely. Is you're probably going to have to, if you're using a pre-made module, almost none of them are going to be set up to end that quickly. So you're going to want to spend some time with it, adjusting it so that you can have that resolution.
Get them maybe design a small dungeon crawl that you can get done in maybe 2-3 hours.
I think it's okay. Also, I mean, maybe an easy way, I'm going to try this next time, is to take the module that you're running, whether it's the one that you maybe made for a different purpose or one that's already been created, and start them about halfway into it. Actually just tell them, you've been in here, this has already happened, you've already achieved this, you've already gotten this, now you're going towards the final goal. So, because the fun is in the final resolution even more than the build-up. I mean, if you've got to just quickly adjust something.
Well,
that may work.
Some of the classic, some of the classic adventures that were written for, like for conventions or for tournaments like Ghost Tower of Inverness, Ghost Tower of Inverness, which is one that leaps the mind because it's written for levels, I think, 4 to 7 or 5 through 7, and you start right there at the front of the Ghost Tower, right there. Yeah. You don't need to do the whole wilderness section because you're talking about time constraints. You're only given about a 3 to 4 hour slot in a convention most of the time. Unless, of course, you're running this where it's not scheduled, that this is something that, you're just running on the side there at the con. But usually you don't go more than 4 hours. So,
and at a con, I don't think you should. I mean, to Vince's point, when Frank was talking about running convention games, he was even saying 3 hours.
Yeah, 3.
Because you're at a convention, people want to do a lot of stuff. And if you've got a 6-hour game at a 2-day convention, your players better be there just for your game in that case. And I think most of the time people want to do a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
True.
And also you don't want to make the adventure. If he's doing this, making it on his own, you don't want to make it too overly complicated. You want to have, like you said, a set goal. There is, and if you're talking about, I don't think he's talking about for like a tournament, but just for a game to run, there is going to be some railroading involved. You can't really do a sandbox adventure in 3 or 4 hours. No. It's just not possible.
Yeah. That's another good argument for dropping him in the middle of something.
Right, exactly.
But you get these people that ask too many questions, though, sometimes when you do that. So,
and also,
what do you mean? What do you mean too many questions?
Well, if you drop someone in the middle of something, they're going to be like, well, when you find something along the way, well, what about, did we find something similar to this in the past? What about the rooms we went through? What happened there? I mean, you get some of those people that ask questions like that.
True. I mean, it's the good point you have there is that you don't know who your players are going to be usually.
Yeah.
And so that's the other thing, because if you already know your players, you know whether people are more interested in getting straight into the action. Do they want more role play? Do they want intrigue? Do they want that? So maybe some general tips, I think, that we should bring up about these things are what are some general preparation things you can do?
Wow. Generate characters. One of them, pre-generate characters and make sure they have maybe a slight description about them, maybe a little bit of a personality for the character. So people.
I think that's a great start.
Yeah.
Yes, that is, and you want to also have a well-balanced set of pre-gens.
Yeah.
What I usually do is I will make 8 pre-gens.
Right.
4 of them of the 4 core character classes. Fighter, magic user, cleric, and thief.
Yep.
Then the other 4. I'll probably do a couple of multi-class characters and maybe 2 that are the subclasses. I think that's a good mix of characters. If you're going to have 8 players, most of them you only have 6, but you want to have up to 8 player characters made. So I think that's a good basis right there. It's worked for me in the past when I've done games at conventions, especially tournaments. So at least that's one thing I'll throw in.
So let's see. Pre-gen characters to start with. Go ahead and roll up probably a couple more than you think you're going to need for the players, because you don't want anybody at the table feeling upset about the character they got. That's the last thing in the world you want, is somebody who's grumbling about playing the thief or something.
Right.
So,
that's why I said 8 characters to choose from. That's more. Yeah. That's generally more than enough. I don't think you're going to get more than 6 at a table.
Yeah. Anyway. If you have player handouts, make sure you make copies of them. Maps.
Yes.
That you want the players to see. Make sure they're already pre-printed out. So all you have to do is lay them down.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You don't want anything to stall the game while you're playing it.
Right. So just stick with the pre-gens for just a moment, because I think this is a good little topic here. Have them pre-made, have all that kind of stuff. When you sit down at the table, ask everybody, first of all, does anyone have a particular class that they're really got their heart set on? Because right off the bat, if somebody always wants to play the cleric, then that problem's solved. And then once you've gotten that out of the way, best thing to do is to say, we're just going to randomly roll. I'm going to start with somebody, and I'm just going to go clockwise around the table. And you can either hand it to them randomly or say, clockwise around the table, pick one and pass it down. So just keep it quick and easy. Have those player characters with a little bit of background, like you just said, and just basically have everybody with all their motivations set and ready to go. And then, like you were saying, have all this other stuff prepared. Have your handouts.
I've also seen for the character thing when I went to a local convention. There were 6 seats, and in front of the seats, the DM already laid out the characters sheet backwards down. Mm-hmm. So when you sat down, that was the character you were playing.
I've been in that's funny.
That's a good way to do it. I was going to say turn them up and let them just pick their seat based on what they see.
You know what? My very first convention I ever went to back in 1990.
What was that, Nick?
It was 1983, I think.
Wow.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and it
was when you were 4 years old.
Right. Add a few more years. And it was, I think, an RPGA event.
Wow.
Which convention was this?
This was... I don't think it was Omicon. I think it was Contretemps.
Okay.
but it might have been Omicron in Omaha.
That would have been Omicron 3 then.
I think so. And I remembered it was the first AD&D game I went into, and the character sheets, you went in and you sat at the table and all the sheets were face down.
Yeah. Okay.
So wherever you sat, and I think we rolled off. There might have been a number written on the back of the sheet, and you rolled off, and that was the seat you sat in. And I had a paladin. Turned it over like, oh my god, I gotta role play a paladin. It's gonna be so tough. But it was fun. That's a way to doing it. It could be very, very interesting. Really, and yeah, it will get people out of their comfort zone.
Yeah.
Because you know, life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're gonna get. This is what's going on right there. So.
And of course, if you have those players that are just like, oh man, I got to play this class, you can always say, listen, you want to just change with this person.
Yeah.
People understand. It's a convention. It's just a one-shot thing. Who cares?
Yeah. Nobody should be upset with who they got.
Yeah.
They want to walk away having a good time. And a couple of other things you can do to help people with this is you could even have a little bit of things for some of them to say at particular times so they can get into it. This is kind of thinking this off the top of my head, but maybe you have a little bit of dialogue, not too much, don't overdo it, but give each one maybe a snippet of dialogue that fits their character. And so at the beginning, they kind of get it, what this guy is supposed to be like.
Well, that might be in their background, though, if you do like a quick paragraph about them. Yeah. I don't know.
I was just thinking you might want to give them a little quote, and then at some point you'd be like, then here's your time for your quote. They read it off early in the game, and it gets them maybe feeling a little more comfortable speaking in the character's voice, and it gets them knowing a little bit of something about the character so they can keep on doing that on their own, kind of like giving them training wheels for a second and then taking them off.
Cool.
But this is for, who knows? You don't know what your players are going to be like. So the other thing is, are these players, are they very experienced with first edition, or are they new to this edition of the game? So you might want to, in addition to the handouts, make some quick little cheat sheets for them.
Right. And also maybe bring an extra set of rule books if you have them available.
Yeah.
So that's the best, if you can do that. And even whether you can or you cannot, a little cheat sheet that just kind of goes into some of the basic mechanics so they don't have to ask you questions about the rules as they go along.
Right.
Cool.
So, and as far as the levels go, I agree with you on 5 to 7. If you know that there's going to be people who are really used to playing AD&D, I think you can take a chance and bring in some higher level things, because it can be really exciting to do some 12th or 13th level things. But I wouldn't do that for unless you're really sure who it is that's going to be playing.
Okay.
Right.
So, but I don't. Did I tell you? Did I mention on the last show or one before about the Omicron flyer that I found?
Yes.
You sent it to me. That was awesome.
Yeah.
I didn't know if I mentioned it on the show though.
I think you mentioned it on the show with Dead Game Society.
Oh, that's right. Well, anyways, I'm still excited about it. I should put this up on the website because I've got it. When you mentioned your first con, well, I've got the flyer from my first con right here, and it's
wow.
That's still exciting to see that.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. So and I guess this would make a good forum post. So I'd really recommend that this kind of goes up in the forum, that people start talking about how to run games at cons. I think it'd be really helpful for anybody who hasn't done it yet.
So if you're listening in, Chuck... Oh, I'm sorry. Never mind.
Yeah, somebody's got to catch up with Chuck. He's winning. He's the highest level poster on the boards.
That's right.
I'll see if I could start posting stuff on that, because I've got a lot of experience doing this past few years.
Cool. Now you're not eligible for levels. None of the three of us are, because we've got our own special titles as the hosts, but everybody else is eligible to run some levels.
No,
that would be good. I should change it.
Well, we can go in there and put special titles and special groups. I was taking a look at that, but I didn't touch it.
Yeah, we should do that.
I like Evil Overlord. How about that?
No, we're not doing Evil Overlords. You're just going to be...
I was just reading at breakfast this morning. I was reading a whole bunch of back and forth in Dragon where I guess Roger Moore wrote an article about why you should not play an evil character and why it just wasn't right for the game. And there was a lot of debate in the pages of Dragon after that about, whether he was right or wrong.
Wow.
So,
cool.
Yeah.
All right. We got one last thing that came in through email.
Oh, cool.
From Glenn Hellstrom. He he actually he made up a promo for our show. I thought it was pretty cool, so I figured I'd play it for you guys today. See what it has to do. Okay, here we go.
In a world of infinite tabletop role-playing games, there are many new types and editions. Some are good, some are bad, and some are dead. But now one podcast dares to keep it old school. Join DM Vince, DM Jason, and DM Nick as they take you back to a time when rolling to save meant life or death. Monsters made you earn your experience, and a gazebo could be deadly. The Roll for Initiative podcast. That's how I roll. On iTunes or at www.rfipodcast.com.
What do you think, guys?
Wow.
That was awesome.
I know, wasn't
That's
it?
awesome.
Greatest
I
promo.
love it.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, my gosh. Who is this guy?
Actually, he's the person that's doing our audio segment that we have in the show tonight later on. We'll talk about. So
I love you, man.
Yeah, he's like, oh, I was kind of bored and I needed something to do, so I designed it for you guys. I was like, wow, dude.
Yeah, we got to keep him bored.
Yeah, let's keep him bored.
Yeah.
If anybody is planning on giving me any exciting, interesting things to do, no.
Oh,
We keep him bored. Make cool stuff. We love it. Thank you.
That was wicked cool. I loved it. Loved it.
All right.
Did you like it?
No, it stunk. No, that was just too cool. Got goosebumps, man.
Okay, cool. So we thank Glenn for that, and maybe he'll send us some more stuff in the future.
Yeah, so thanks, Glenn, very much. And thanks for everybody, calling in. We really like getting the voicemails. Emails, everything is great. But please call in because it's great to hear the listeners' voices and for everybody to get to hear each other. So that'll end Sage Advice for this week. And let's head to the next segment.
Typical. Of all the evil creatures in the world, I'd like to find one with table manners.
What, are you kidding me? I spent years cultivating the worst table manners on the planet.
Table manners.
All right, here we go, folks. Table manners, and this week for table manners, we're going to talk about THACO versus THACO. Yeah,
the infamous debate.
Yes, one of the infamous debates of, THACO.
You guys are going to have to bring me up to the debate here because I don't know what the infamous debate is. Is it the pronunciation?
The infamous debate between THAC0 and THACO is that everyone always debates that THACO is part of First Edition. And people in First Edition say THAC0 apparently because it's something different than THACO was the whole big debate. THACO is a second edition 2-hit system, and THAC0 was the chart system that they used in first edition. What the differences were.
You've got the chart in the back of the DM's guide that says to hit armor class 0, but that's just a shorthand because you couldn't fit an entire lot of other stats in what's basically just an alphabetical monster listing.
Right. And that the whole debate about this is that, THACO didn't come in second edition. Everyone in second edition say the people in first edition are just crazy, and then the whole time first edition chart systems were a THACO system, but it's not.
First of all, does Unearthed Arcana have anything about THACO in it?
No, it does not.
Okay, so you guys have to help me out here because I've never played second edition. I don't know anything about it. Does the THACO, which I'm assuming is to hit armor class 0,
right?
Does it line up? If I just took that and I lined it up with the charts from first edition, would it be the same result?
No,
it would not.
Not even close.
It is very much skewed in second edition to where, and I looked at this already. The difference is it is easier for player characters, or I should say the character classes, to hit armor classes versus when you go to the monster THACO, it's harder for monsters to hit.
So thus began the great gradual slide into Munchkinism.
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
So now I see, okay, so that's why people are upset about THACO. I thought it was just because the concept of THACO felt kind of 2E, and that's why I've always just avoided using the phrase or the concept, because I don't really care. I just don't think it feels 1E, so I don't use it.
Now, there is a difference.
But it's actually different. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. Even if
difference.
You look at where it says to hit Armor Class 0 in the back of the DMG, where it has the listing of all the monsters from the monster manual, it's still the same. It's still based off the same chart in the rest of the DMG.
It better be.
But in second edition, again, it's different. There's a slight variance. It's off when you get up into, even in the lower hit die creatures, it's harder for them to hit.
Well, yeah, harder to hit
for them.
The negative armor class. Like the first edition has the repeating 20.
All right. So what is the deal? What are you talking about?
As far as what
you're talking about, that little moment in the curve where there's a few repeating 20s for any of the hits,
right?
It holds on that for a little while.
Yeah, that is one of the major differences between the charts between first edition and second edition.
Yeah.
Okay. How does it work in second edition? You don't have that little fire break there?
There's not really any repeating 20s like that.
Yeah. The only place where you're going to see it prevalent is just at the first few levels of a class.
Maybe.
I'm just looking at it. First through third for a wizard, first and second for a rogue, and first through third for a priest.
Mm-hmm.
But even then, it's
what are these
off.
Wizards, rogues, and priests you speak of?
I know.
No, I get it.
I'm using other terms, but I think in first edition though, you get away from that, from just having a straight repeating 0, where it actually goes up on the matrix from a number higher than 0, because there you're going to need that actual number to hit.
So help me out here with some of these mechanisms. Now I get what you're saying about if they made it easier for PCs to hit and harder for monsters to hit, because if I'm looking at the actual combat tables right now on my DM screen,
right,
if it's way easier for a monster of a certain hit die to hit a certain armor class than it is for any PC. So if I look at armor class, if I look at armor class 0, and a one hit dice monster can hit that with a 19, there is no way that any player character is going to be doing that. And if you keep following it up to the point where you need a 10 to hit armor class 0, that's a 10th level monster. And to get to that point for a PC, 16th level for a cleric, 11th level, so it's getting close for a fighter, but it's not. I mean, the monsters are always going to have an easier time hitting you. So I get what you're saying there. But from a mechanic perspective, so when I'm playing, if somebody attacks, I just look at what's your level, look on the chart at the armor class, and I say, okay, you're going to need a 15 to hit. Now, how does using something like a THACO mechanism make that easier? If I'm using the original charts.
From what the rumors were for first edition originally were, and I believe this was said by Gary Gygax, was that players were not supposed to know what they were rolling to hit, and players were not supposed to be rolling their own rolls originally with first edition, which is a big rumor that I think it was a rumor that was floating around, and someone confirmed it, but I wasn't sure about it. But players were not supposed to know. And then with second edition, players were known with the THACO system to know what they had to hit. And it was easy to plot out what number you had to hit by doing the THACO system backwards.
Okay, well, I mean, if somebody tells you, look, if you know that you're a 5th level fighter and somebody says you're going to need a 10 to hit, if you're used to this whole thing, you can think, okay, armor class 6. But that's just the difference between whether you let your players roll their to hits or not, and I think that's sort of an individual DM's prerogative.
Right. I don't think I've ever been in a game where the players were not allowed to roll their to hit rolls.
Well, it's just no fun. I mean, come on, half the fun is rolling the dice.
Right. But I think what Vince was driving at here is I think you almost get into a metagaming aspect where if you know what exactly you need to roll for your character to hit that monster with whatever weapon it may be, after a while, it gets to a point where that knowledge is being might possibly get abused.
Yeah, like
but how? I mean, how would you abuse that?
If say like you have to hit a monster and you need like a 10 or better, you'd be like, well, since I know his armor class is this, I'll have to use this certain sword that gives me a bonus of plus this, and you'll start using weapons like that.
Fair enough. I mean, if that's what makes a player have a good time, but at the same time, if I've got a character who's constantly switching up his weapons, I'm going to give him a lot of penalties for that. He's going to take him time to switch the weapons. It's going to open him up to attacks. I mean, I don't want to see anybody switching from their pole arm to a sword in the middle of a melee.
Well, this is where you get to points where, but I'm talking like later on there, where characters will say, "Oh, we ran into that before, and it has an AC of 4. I know exactly what I need to hit it."
Yeah. Well, don't keep throwing up predictable monsters against your players.
Well, that's the thing.
Yeah.
It's where you gotta, as a DM, you gotta mix it up a little. Don't let your players assume anything. You got to keep them on their toes. I think some of that did happen, and I know I let it happen in my game at one point, and I corrected myself. And
if you go to the Dragon's Foot forum and ask in the first edition forum what is THACO, you will get a null response from anybody in that forum as far as THACO being in first edition.
Well, I mean, I've seen the arguments, and I definitely you see the argument about, well, it's in the DM guide and everything, but the point of THACO telling you what kind of an armor class you're going up against, I think is that argument doesn't wash for me, because you can do the same thing with the combat tables. So, and I get people don't like to talk about THACO. I don't like the phrase or the usage because it's foreign to me, to the game I play. But I'm open to hearing, if there's a way to say, here's a shorthand. I know but that's what I'm still not getting. So I want to hear like a positive argument for this. Is there any way that using that shorthand can make the combat easier?
It's the whole concept between the two of them was that the players were not supposed to know what they're supposed to have to hit, and in second edition they made it readily available to players. That's the difference between the two of them. First edition, the DM's supposed to control everything. Even if the players roll it, they're not supposed to know, like, I'm supposed to have a 15. It's supposed to be a hidden secret on the DM screen, as opposed to second edition where they just laid it all out for the player.
Right.
Okay.
Or even if they did roll it, you would just tell them, roll the hit. And then I'll tell you if you hit. You don't tell them a number. You just tell them to roll the die and add up all your bonuses. And I'll tell you if you hit.
Okay, but if the melee goes on for 9 rounds and I'm always missing on a 15, but I'm hitting on a 17, I mean, I'm getting pretty close to knowing what's going on here.
Well, yeah.
Possibly.
Yeah.
Possibly, sure.
So, and besides, the way that I DM, I like my players to roll as much as possible because I just recognize that that's part of the fun for me as a player.
Sure.
Right. So they're rolling everything. They're rolling their hits, they're rolling their traps, they're rolling their saving throws, they're rolling their secret doors, they're rolling their initiative, everything. And, I suppose I'm giving something away when everybody rolls and somebody gets a 1 for secret doors and they still don't find anything. But I find that to be a benefit because you got to keep the game moving. So I don't want people getting paranoid. I mean, I know I'm going back to the traps and everything again, but the same sort of thing. I don't want people walking along paranoid because they're checking for traps every single couple of steps and, they just don't know what happened. So same sort of thing. If they're rolling to hit and, somebody's like, awesome, I rolled an 18, and I tell them that didn't hit, I don't know. It's more. I suppose there might be something mysterious and game accurate about it, but I just find that my players seem to enjoy rolling their own to hits.
And as they should. And I don't think we're arguing against it. I think
I like them to see when I roll to hit against them, because I think it's kind of lousy when you're just kind of getting hit, but you hear the dice rolling behind the screen and you don't know what the DM was rolling.
You're not supposed to know the DM rolls.
I know, but I let them see anyways.
Okay.
I just think it's a certain part of it which keeps the game a little bit more exciting.
Right. I think one of the things that this kind of goes into is when we talk about this THACO thing, it kind of blurred the difference between player knowledge and character knowledge, I think. I'm not sure if I'm reading that right, but I think it kind of blurs that. While before that, I think most of us played it, like I said, it's just, okay, as being the DM, okay, roll the hit, add up all your bonuses, let me know what you rolled, and then I'll look it up and I'll tell you if you hit or not. I think that's how most of us do it. I don't think we tell them what number they need to hit the certain creature, because then I think after a while, I don't know, it just takes away some of the mystery, some of the excitement, You don't
want your players to know what the number is. You don't want them to know what the armor class is. I mean, obviously, if they look in the book ahead of time, there's nothing you can do about that, but...
Well, I don't mind them knowing that, because if they're going up and I say you're going to need a 10 to hit or you're going to need a 20 to hit, it right away puts a little bit of a sense into them of, I'm going up against something pretty dastardly, I'm going up against something pretty beatable. And since, I can describe the monster to them and say all those other kind of things, but in the heat of the battle, okay, let's take this into a little bit of what are we really simulating here.
Okay.
You've got a melee round of action, all this stuff's going on, and if you're fighting a monster, let's put you in this imaginary world where it's really happening. When this is really going on, you can feel that, hey, I'm really taking this guy pretty easily, or, wow, I mean, I'm getting him, but this is the toughest fight of my life. And so letting them see what the roles are is a little bit of that feel of, this is the toughest fight of my life, or, yeah, I'm getting him.
Yeah, if you maybe got to the big baddie at the end of the dungeon or something like that, yeah, you might put that out there as kind of a, letting them know this is the deal, this is it.
Well, flip it on their heads. Take a kobold, okay? So they know kobolds are weak, so they go up against them, they roll the hit, and they either hit them or they don't. So there you go. So they roll the hit against a kobold, and you don't tell them what they needed ahead of time. They roll a 19, and you say, you missed.
Wow.
Whoa, okay, something's going on.
And that's where it gets fun.
So, yeah, I mean, it's almost the same thing as if they roll the hit, and I say, before they roll, I say, you're going to need a 19. They might go, whoa. And so, yeah, I get your point there, and maybe I should think about how I do that a little bit, but I don't think that there's a huge problem with them roll, as long as they are the ones themselves that are rolling it.
Right. And I don't think Vince and I are arguing against them not rolling the actual roll.
I was just saying what the rumor was supposedly for the reason.
Yeah. Now, as far as first time it was printed, it was in the DMG as far as the THAC 0.
Well, it didn't call it THACO. It said 2 hit armor class 0.
Armor class 0.
It spelled it out. So
I don't think it wasn't.
That's not THACO.
Now, there was a kind of I think it was in a book called the Book of Layers.
Yeah.
I've got the Book of Layers around here somewhere. Let me go grab that.
And that is a first edition book.
Right.
And they use the term THACO.
Okay, I've got the Book of Layers right here.
I'm pretty sure I have it too, and I thought I saw
THACO's in it. I'm looking right now.
And that's a first edition book too. That was published in 86, 88, something around there.
Well, let's see. I could look for the thing here, but first of all, it says THACO, and it literally says THAC-O with an O, not a 0.
Right.
Because you can tell the difference between a 0 and an O because it's right next to that. Published in 1986. It's from the UK, so maybe that's...
that's why. No, I'm kidding.
I don't know. Is there something about that? But yeah, I'm looking at a bunch of brigands here, and they're listed as being armor class 5, move 12, hit dice 2, hit point 11, damage 1d6, THACO 20.
Right.
So is there a mechanism that makes it this is what I know that I've had people argue that it's easier. So if I know it's THACO 20, what am I doing? Am I just subtracting something? I go THACO 20, he's going against armor class 4. Is it a straight subtraction?
Yeah.
It can't be, because in the tables in the first edition you've got those repeating 20s.
It's
right.
It's
it wouldn't jive.
Yeah, it's different with the THACO.
Well, so actually, how does that even work at all? Because if you've got repeating 20s and it says THACO 20, well, which 20?
Right.
Wouldn't that now you're really getting me thinking here. So wouldn't that be the case? So now I'm frustrated. now I gotta know. Now
it was TSR.
Yeah.
Vince, got anything on that?
No, I wasn't a heavy second edition player. I only played it approximately 4 times, and that was about it.
All right, I'm going to find somebody with a THACO of 20 in here. Okay, here we go. A Nixie. Nixie is got a THACO of 20, and it's got half a hit dice. So that means it's up to 1-1. So that means that technically, according to the charts, yes, that's a 0. To hit armor class 0 is a 20, but that's also what he needs to hit armor class 1, and what he needs to hit armor class -1, and -4 for that matter. So how does that tell you anything?
It doesn't.
It doesn't.
No.
It doesn't. I think them putting it in there at that time, it just didn't jive with the matrices in the DMG.
Yeah, a giant rat, same deal. To hit armor class 0, 20. But, that's not the only thing that they need that for.
I think at that point they were saying those low-level creatures didn't need to go into the negatives, so you didn't really need to know what -4 armor class to hit was, also. Mm-hmm. I mean, unless you had a really powerful first-level character with an armor class of, -4?
I guess what I'm starting to wonder now, what's the point of even having... if you look in the back of the Dungeon Master's Guide, of even having this line to hit armor class 0, because it says the hit dice. I've got my tables here, and so if the hit dice THACO, so to speak, if the THACO is the same for a creature of 1-1 hit dice as it is for a creature of a half hit dice, which it is, but the tables are not the same.
No.
Well, I'm not going to look at the THACO. I'm going to look at the actual hit dice. I'm going to look at my table, and I'm going to tell you what it takes.
Yeah.
Right. Because you're talking about those repeating 20s again. That's where
so the only way THACO makes any sense.
You're going to go to the chart anyway.
That's the only way. The only way THACO is useful at all is if you have a chart that's a straight progression. So the thing is, it doesn't really matter if you're looking at the line that says THACO in the back of the DMG. You got the exact same THACO as you do for. You got the exact same for a 1-1 hit dice as you do for a half hit dice. So it's useless. You'd have to just go to the charts.
Right, so you're going to have to go to the chart anyway.
The only thing this makes sense for is if you have a straight progression with pluses and minuses, which it sounds like you're saying that's what second edition did.
Yes.
And that's fine. Yeah. I'm not going to argue the merits of the second edition system. I'm just going to say that pretty much conclusively proves that there is no such thing as THACO in first edition.
Right, it didn't make sense in first edition. It made more sense in second edition than first.
Yeah, they actually worked it to where they wanted a THACO system that in itself was playable. While they tried to, it sounded like they tried to put this kind of shortcut system in, and I never used it in first edition before.
No, I never have either.
And
you can't,
because I never saw the point of it, and you really can't.
Jason just proved it right there. You can't really do it.
Yeah, no. So even though I can look at the Book of Layers and I can see a THACO clearly written in the description, and I can see it in the back of the Dungeon Master's Guide, I also see the hit dice, and I know that I have to go to the tables, and I know that THACO doesn't have an actual meaning. I mean, there's some places you could kind of use it, but it's not necessary, and it can't actually work according to the system of the charts.
No.
So therefore, there is no such thing in first edition as THACO, despite what you might see written in the back of something. QED.
Yeah, it's just like it's two systems. There were, it was another system that was kind of stuck on the side, but it doesn't work with the matrices as written.
You can't even figure it out for player characters too. Think about them too. A fighter starts with the D20 for THAC 0,
mm-hmm.
and then moving down on the progression chart, it's still going to have a repeating 20. So how do you figure that with that? You can't.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Unless
you got a zero-level human.
Yeah, unless you completely memorize every single chart and go, haha, there's 5 repeating 20s here.
And who's
in which
going to
case
do
you might
that?
as well just look at the chart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
you might as well just hand the chart over to the players and say, here.
which I guess, some would. So there's a lot of stuff we talk about where we say, well, psionics, it's optional. Maybe you use it, maybe you don't. Hey, this rule, maybe use it, maybe you don't. Maybe this thing, you use the Unearthed Arcana version of weaponless combat or use the other one. There's a little bit of question. But when it comes to, is there a THACO in first edition, we can definitively say,
no.
There's no debate here. There is no such thing as THACO.
There's no such thing. It's an illusion. I disbelieve.
You failed your save.
Oh, dang it. Well, I guess that kind of wraps it up on this section. And there's anybody else out there listening to RFI podcast, let us know what you think about it. And we'll move on to Jason's going to take on Creature Feature Theater and talk about what the Mind Flayer is. So on to Creature Feature Theater.
Yay.
Creature Feature Theater.
Welcome to the Creature Feature Theater, where this week we're going to be talking about the Mind Flayer, who we are the Illithid, if you will.
Yes.
That we encountered last week in our psionics segment. So we've been getting a lot of good feedback about the psionics segment, and I'm really glad that we did that. Turns out that a lot of people really kind of came out and as psionics fans, and it's good to see that. And before we talk about the actual creature in question, I just wanted to give a little bit of a nod to a couple of really cool people out there in terms of psionics. Courtney Campbell and Nathan Lord.
Okay.
So Courtney Campbell and Nathan Lord are working on something that's going to be coming out pretty soon, and it is a psionics supplement for first edition AD&D.
Oh, cool.
Really?
It's really nice. I hold a pre-release copy of it here in my hands, and I'm not going to say too much about it because it's still in progress.
It's pretty and shiny.
Yeah, it's nice.
It's nice. I will say that I think they might be using the psionics worksheet that we used in our encounter last time.
Oh, nice.
They might be putting that in here. We've been talking.
Oh, good.
Yeah, it's kind of neat because actually what it says here is it says a new old school supplement for a compiled volume of information used first and foremost by old school game masters, including the psionicist class, the generation of psionic characters, psionic disciplines, psionic combat, psionic items, and more.
That's the title?
Wow.
That's the title, yes.
Wow. That's a huge title.
I think a lot of this, I believe these guys might play Hackmaster as their main game, actually.
Oh, cool.
Because if I recall right, they were talking about some things that were Hackmaster specific as well. But it's really cool. So hopefully, once this is actually out, we'll be able to revisit psionics a little bit, maybe even have them on the show, because it is a ton of work. And this thing, it looks like TSR put this thing out in the 70s.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Oh, cool.
It's like it looks like a psionics handbook almost, but better looking.
Well, yeah, because they used all the typefaces and all of the spacing and everything to make it, look old school and original. So
good Century Gothic font, my favorite.
Actually, no, it was Futura and. Futura. People don't want to hear about this again.
Yeah, when you first showed me that, Jason, I was like, "You're kidding me!" And you're like, "Yeah, they're working on it hard. Here's a little sneak preview of it. Take a look." I
want to see a copy. I want to see.
Oh yeah. I'll let you take a look at it as long as we don't share it with anybody.
No.
We can look at it ourselves.
I read it and I actually deleted it because I want to wait for I actually read the first bit of it and I was like, "Wow, this is cool." I'm gonna delete this and wait for the full thing because I want to read the whole entire thing when it's completed.
Yeah, me too.
The only thing that's missing is, Donald Sutherland, or to do the is it Donald Sutherland that did the artwork? Yeah, to do the cover or something.
Oh, I thought you were talking about Donald Sutherland like to do the forward or something.
Wait, wasn't that the name of the David Sutherland?
Oh, okay, David. Okay.
I'm thinking of the actor. All they need is David Sutherland to do a cover for them. But
or Errol Otis.
Errol Otis. You know, okay, sidebar, only for a second. What I was just thinking is that, what's his name? The guy who does all of Iron Maiden's artwork, Derek Riggs.
Yeah.
Derek Riggs he's got a website with contact info. He's for hire. If anybody's doing a game book that you're going to be publishing professionally or semi-professionally, and you want an artist that has an old school feel, but you've never seen him on a game book before, Derek Riggs, that's the guy to go to.
Why don't they do that for the Psionics?
Yeah, he would do great art. Anyways, let's talk about the Mind Flayer. That's why we're here. Last week, we had an encounter with a Mind Flayer, and a few different things happened. One of the first things that happened was before you even came into the room, Grimthar, I think, was dominated.
Yeah, yes. And he got naked and ran in the water.
Yeah, he jumped into the water and all those types of things. So the first thing to do is to go back and take a look at what the Mind Flayer actually can do. I mean, they're not an entirely they're not an entirely pure mind-based thing. They've got a body, they can do melee and all that type of thing, but they're going to go for mind techniques. First of all, they're not that strong. But so some of the things that they can do, they've got a high psionic ability. In the monster manual, their psionic ability is always between 240 and 340.
Yeah,
which is higher than by normal standards any PC could be. 340 is off the charts for a player character. Although it was pointed out to me that there's some things that can raise that. So we're going to be updating our psionics worksheet to indicate that. But that's another story. And then they have this. Okay, so here's where there's a little bit of a disconnect. They have their attack and defense modes listed here, and their abilities. And one of the things it says is that the Mind Flayer's not physical attack. Sorry, the Mind Flayer's
mental attacks.
Mental attack. I just want to find the one where it describes it in here. It describes it as the most feared attack mode is the Mind Blast of psionic power.
Yeah.
All right. So here, the Monster Manual came out before the Player's Handbook. So
right.
There's no such thing as a Mind Blast in the psionic powers described.
There's Psionic Blast.
Yeah.
And there's Mind Thrust.
Right.
And confusing the issue even more is the fact that it says attack mode B in the Monster Manual, which would be Mind Thrust.
Right.
But that is not what is described.
Right.
What's described in the Monster Manual is it says the Mind Blast of psionic power all within a 6 square directional cone of half square diameter. Blah 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 blah, and it works on psionics. Well, that's the description of a psionic blast.
Right.
Well, so like we originally said, it was designed for the original D&D, and then they updated it for advanced. That's why it came out beforehand.
And this is one of those things that kind of slipped through the cracks.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So when you're reading this, the right way to read it is to look at the Monster Manual and read that as Attack Mode A, Psionic
Blast. Yeah.
Because later.
Did they change it in later printings?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Really?
Because I have the 5th edition print from 1980.
Okay. Yeah.
And it reads just as you said it, Jason.
Okay, yeah, mine's the 4th edition print from 1979, so
mine's also
pretty close.
Yeah, I got the same thing you guys have.
Maybe the orange spine is different. I don't know, but
as far as I know, they never changed it.
Okay,
which is weird.
So yeah. But at any rate, so their attack, psionic blast is their main mode of attack, and the reason is because that works on non-psionic creatures, and that's the pretty terrible, one. Their defense modes F, G, and H, so mind blank, thought shield, mental barrier, and then all the things that they can do, and this is where it gets even scarier because all of their psionic disciplines get pretty hardcore. So they've got levitation, domination, ESP, body equilibrium, astral projection, and probability travel, all at the 7th level of mastery.
Mastery, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh,
So-
did you also let everybody know what their magic resistance is, which is scary in itself?
90%.
Wow.
Yeah.
90%. And so this is a pretty powerful creature. And the ultimate thing, I think, that really defines a Mind Flayer, even more than their psionic ability or their brain eating, which I guess we should talk about in a moment, is their intelligence. As a race, they are of genius intelligence.
Yeah.
Now, that means that you're probably, the way I would play it is that that's just a racial average. So you're going to meet a few who are, not very bright, so they're only exceptional. And you're going to meet some who are going to be super genius. You're talking about a race of creatures who, on average, are way more intelligent than humans.
Yeah, on average, they're 17 to 18 intelligence, which is it's really scary.
Copyright violations, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they do. It looks like Cthulhu,
Yeah.
Shh, don't tell people that. Copyright violation.
But well, you know what? Somebody put out a game recently that I saw that had a beholder in it, and they called it a gazer or something. So
yeah,
and I'm sure Wizards of the Coast will be coming after this guy if they hear about it.
Well,
anyway,
mine only has 2 stalks as opposed to 9.
Yeah. But the Mind Flayer is the thing that really defines them is the fact that this is an incredibly old race. They're so old that nobody knows their origins. Nobody even knows what plane they originate from because they are planar travelers. They go
even the Mind Flayers themselves forgot where they came from.
Yes, they don't even know. And they view humans and other humanoid races the way that we view cattle.
Yeah.
We are their they don't view humans as something to fight with or to have enmity towards or anything like that. It's just
we
they
are
don't even
food.
Yeah. So so this gets to their physical attack, which is putting their tentacles on and drawing out the brain of their victim. So if even one tentacle hits its victim, it will begin to burrow in, and in 1 to 4 melee rounds, which, roll your 1d4, which means you might only have a single round to escape this attack.
Yikes.
It will simply reach in and draw forth the brain of its victim.
Yeah.
So
there's no save against that.
So it burrows right through your skull and takes the brain.
Just takes it.
Wow.
Just takes it. I mean, this would make an amazing horror film. Why is there no Mind Flayer in a horror film? I don't know.
Because it's a copyright violation.
Yeah, I don't know. Never mind. I was going to talk about Predator, but let's let it go.
No.
But yeah, so these Mind Flayers, they travel the plains. They are, they treat humans like cattle. The whole thing of eating the brain, it's sort of a expression of dominance over their victims. Yeah. And but the other thing is that they are physically weak, and they are going to flee if they're faced with the prospect of defeat, and they can flee very easily thanks to probability travel.
Yeah, and they also have, sunlight. They can't go in sunlight, can they?
Right. So you've been reading the ecology article.
And I have to tell you that ecology article, and that's from Dragon number 78.
78. I mean, if you only buy one dragon, buy 78.
This Ecology of the Mind Flayer by Roger Moore, my favorite ecology of all of them. Of all the ones I've read, that is my favorite.
Yeah, it's a great one.
There's so many bits, great nuggets of information in it. I just love it. I read it over and over.
The only
because I love who's telling the story.
Oh, wait, let me go. Oh, because it's the Githyanki telling the story.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, okay. So there we go. That's a good segue into the Mind Flayer's relationship to the races of the Gith.
Okay.
So you've got the Githyanki and the Githzerai, who at one time they were humans, and they were humans that had been enslaved by the Mind Flayers, and I might be getting this a little bit wrong about how it's split up, but essentially one group of humans escaped the Mind Flayers, and they went on to become the Githyanki.
The Githyanki, and then the Githzerai later collaborated with the Ithalids, and They had like two different. Yeah, they had two different leaders. There was Gith, the original leader of the humans who rebelled against the Mind Flayers, and then some other faction broke off, and then they became the Gith Zerai.
The Gith Zerai being the ones that are now they have an uneasy truce, the way it's described in their
right
monster manual, or no, I mean,
the Fiend Folio. Yeah.
So this article, it tells it from the perspective of the Githyanki, and the Githyanki are not going to be your best friends as a human either. But if you are facing, if you're facing a Mind Flayer as, I mean, it's a perfect thing to put an adventure around, which is, that some Mind Flayers have made an entrance into your realm, into the plane that you exist on, and they've decided to set up a farm, to just go ahead and start farming you guys. Basically, the Githyanki are going to be your one and only hope as allies, because they're the only other monsters out there that might actually stand a chance of helping to be able to stand up against them.
Yeah, exactly.
Not in one-on-one, but they themselves have become powerful psionicists, and they're the ones that in this ecology are giving away some of these secrets, like what you just said about the light.
Yeah.
Because help me pronounce it. What?
Ithalid?
Gith Zerai?
Ithalid.
Ithalid, right?
Ithalid. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I like that term better, the Ithalid.
Yeah.
So the Ithalid are described as having these white pupil, just pure white eyes, and I guess a little bit like a cave fish or something. Mm-hmm. And so as you say, they aren't able to handle light. So player knowledge versus character knowledge here, but if you have a character that has got some knowledge of the Mind Flayers, then that player will know all it takes is a continual light spell cast, right on their nose, so to speak, and you've now weakened them to the point they can't even concentrate to use their psionic powers.
Right.
So that's a good one. That's a good thing to know.
Yeah, that's if you get the drop on them first.
Now, you said
which you really want to do.
You said they run away when there's a chance they might be defeated.
Yeah, they're not going to stick around to be taken down.
That one that we fought kind of stuck around pretty much.
He stuck around a little too much. I mean, if I remember right, I'd have to go back and listen. He didn't really get much of a chance to flee.
No, yeah.
But
true. We did blast him pretty hard.
But if he had a little,
I blew his brains out.
if he had taken the opportunity to flee, he probably would have used his probability travel, which allows you to travel bodily to another plane, and just gotten the heck out of there.
Yeah, he went nowhere.
Although I just wanted you to have a chance to do a little scanners action on him.
Yeah, that was fun.
And then we double tapped him.
That's right.
The greatest
brain tapped him.
The greatest term in the whole movie, double tap. I love that movie. Anyway.
So I mean, the Mind Flayer, they're usually thought of as the stereotypical penultimate. I don't know what the word is I'm looking for. Not penultimate, but they're looked at as the epitome of the psionic monster, and for good reason.
They're a great psionic monster.
They're great.
Oh yeah,
and really great to bring into a campaign. And I would say that I can't imagine a Mind Flayer showing up in any adventure without being the central hub around which the adventure rotates.
You guys allow players to make a monster character out of that?
No, absolutely not.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
I don't allow players to make a monster character.
Yeah,
there are some DMs that allow that, like,
Yeah.
I remember I had a player in the Great Joe DM campaigns that played a Minotaur. So that was kind of interesting.
Well, with the Mind Flayers, and you're talking about adventures, one that leaps to mind is, I think it's the Vault of the Drow or Descent to the Depths of the Earth. There are Mind Flayers in there. Because the Drow have some weird relationship with them.
Really?
Yeah.
This is the reason, all other things aside, why I would never allow a mind flayer, even if as a DM I thought that monster PCs were okay, which I don't, but even if I did, I can't imagine putting a mind flayer in a group of humans, because would you go and take a business meeting with a bunch of pigs and cows?
Oh, hell no.
Well, I'm talking about drow, though. I mean,
are drow so intelligent that they would be considered as worth talking to by a Ithalid? Did I say it right?
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, so I don't know. I don't think the drow would have a problem. You know how evil creatures get along, so.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Gygax wrote it into the adventures like that there was they traded stuff with them, like some sort of trading.
Right.
Well, I have to dig this up a little bit, but it'd be okay. Well, I guess I would like to hear from people what they actually do with Mind Flayer, and if any, we should definitely do a playing the monster as a player character at some point in the future. Talk about that, even though I think it's a terrible idea. It's not worth. It doesn't mean we shouldn't.
Yeah,
I'm just remembering that in that whole series, the GDQ series, a Giants Drow, in the Demon Web series, I do recall that there are at least a few mind flayers in there, and they're working in conjunction with the drow, or they have some sort of working relationship with them.
Okay, well, I mean, I'm looking at their description there of what's the kind of intelligence? Highly intelligent, which doesn't come anywhere near a mind flayer. And I suppose if I wanted to dig through this whole thing, I could find out. But sure, if Gary Gygax put it into a module, fine, that makes sense. But I can't imagine a mind flayers. I just see as these supremely arrogant alien race that once they make it into your world, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
All right.
Now one creature, though, I would think that maybe mind flayers might look at reluctantly as, if not equals, but rivals, would be beholders.
Yeah, they could make good rivals. And so there's a lot of things we could go into in terms of what makes sense when you're putting an adventure together. Which monsters are going to actually be willing to talk to each other? And not to keep on pushing our forums, but I think this is not a bad idea. I would like to see somebody getting into some of these discussions, because it's
I know
it's
in
really
that ecology article there were a couple of creatures that are brought up that might be work with the mind flayers, because they talk about their cities.
Yeah, they definitely get into the cities and all those kind of things. So when you're creating an adventure, you want to look for the ways that you can put these monsters together. Why are they there? Same thing we were saying before about dungeon creation, that you don't just roll things up and put them next to each other. You've got to have some understanding of how they're actually relating to each other. So if any of our listeners, want to kind of talk about what they see as the monsters that make the most sense to have working in conjunction with a mind flayer, we'd love to hear about that. Put it on the forums, write to us, let us know. And we'll go ahead and wrap up the creature feature for this week and wait and see what everybody thinks of it.
Yeah. rfipodcast.com, rfistaff@gmail.com.
Close your eyes and tell me what you see.
The library.
So we're bringing back the library this week, guys.
All right.
Oh, good. I like the library.
Yeah, library's nice little travel up there. You know what we're doing this week?
What have we got? Let's look on the shelves.
All right, I'm pulling down a comic book.
Hey.
Remember these
That's
things?
literature.
That definitely is literature. That's literature. Nice, Nick. Well, in the late 80s, 88 in fact, they actually came out with an Advanced Dungeons & Dragons comic book, which I happen to collect. And Nick, you had an interesting story you had told me before the podcast about that. How you said you had gotten the first book, or was I mistaken about that?
Yeah, I remember when you told me about it, I'm like, oh my God, I totally forgot about the comic, And I thought they renamed it later on. I remember collecting a few copies, and I thought it was just really cool that I saw something in comic book form. But I guess I was wrong that they renamed it. They still kept the name, but there was like a few others too, right?
Yeah, they went all the way to issue 36 for comic books, and then I think it stopped, and then they went to they broke it down into Forgotten Realms. Maybe it was renamed to Forgotten Realms. I'm looking here. I don't happen to have the Forgotten Realms ones on me, but
looks like we got a little note from our producer here. We got Forgotten Realms, Dragonlance, and Spelljammer.
Yes. I have them all, the Forgotten Realms, Dragonlance, and Spelljammer. There were some great comics they did. But the one thing I wanted to point out about this comic, which was the most important thing that relates to our podcast, is after every little adventure in the comic books, if you flip to the very, very back, which you guys can do easily with the PDF I gave you, it gives you stats for all the things that happens inside the comic book. So there was a magic weapon in this that was called the Staff of Withering. Right in the back, boom, there is the Staff of Withering, what it does and how it relates to the game itself, so you can import it right into your game.
Yeah,
that's pretty neat. And I see THACO.
I know.
Yeah.
Disbelief.
Disbelief. Oh, sorry, it disappeared.
Right, and it also gives you stats for the main character.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So,
and if I remember through the later issues, they gave stats for each major character there.
Yes, and they also gave stats for the creatures that they had made up for the for each comic too. Not for this one, but the later ones they also gave. Like, if it was a certain creature in the back, boom, there was the creature. Wow, my players didn't read this comic. I can bring this creature in next week and be something new for them.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah. So anyway, this comic, pretty much, we all have to take a chance to read this, but it follows.
I read through it.
It follows the path of a bunch of adventurers. It first starts doing you some back history of a paladin and his father, who were praying in, I guess it was a temple or his tower, and then he gets attacked by a draconian, which I call draconian. I don't know if that's the proper name for the race.
I don't know what it is.
It looks like
this. They didn't put in the back of here.
Yeah, it looks like a draconian because if you read the other comics later on, they kind of reference it as him being some type of dragon race.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say draconian. And then he uses the Staff of Withering on him after he kills the guy's father, this paladin, and he becomes worthless. He can't lift up a sword. He becomes weak and withering away.
Hence the withering, yep.
So then he goes off on his own and just becomes a complete bum. And then the story kind of jumps to the draconian, and he's talking about his master plan, what he wants to do, and who he's hiring. And there's like this snake guy shows up, and
the Yuan-Tai,
yeah, thank you. He shows up, and he starts telling his plans about that. And then we jump again to this elven wizard. She's somehow the magic weave, and this is based in Forgotten Realms. I didn't mention that, I apologize. And how she's learning magic, and then I guess she's abusing the magical power because her hand starts changing into a crystal form, and they have to figure it out. So they go on adventure, and then they get attacked by these like bug-eyed, ugly sea hag creatures that come flying in.
Those are those Chasme. Those are demons. Those are on Monster Manual too.
Okay.
Yep.
And then they attack, and then they grab the girl and one of the people, and they fly out. And then there's this other adventuring party with the half man, half horse. I can't think. What the hell they call the race?
Centaurs.
Centaurs, along with the dwarf that happened to be just walking by that saved them. Then they all get together, and then they tell the story about this paladin who they need to go find because he's the one that could rid the evil of the land. They go into this town. I know I'm summing it up really badly, but this is really the gist of the whole story, honestly.
There's a story?
Jason. Don't insult the authors.
Let me put it this way. The authors didn't put their names on this.
Yes, they did. They put their names on.
Really? Because if you look on the front, it says Unknown Comics. And if you look at the back, rather than listing an author, you've got things like the marketing director, the controller, the editorial administrator, but nobody's going to take the fall for having written this thing.
It's right here where it says The Gathering on the third page.
Does it? Hold on. Where's this?
It's the double page panel.
Oh, did I miss that part?
Yeah.
Somebody actually... I bet it's a fake name.
No, it's not. It's Michael Fleischer and Jan Duursma.
Yeah, writers, co-plotters, and artists.
The editor was Barbara Kiesel. There's probably people that worked for DC at the time.
Well, every one of these people owes me an apology. This is the worst. This is like the worst thing I've ever read.
You really think it's bad?
I really think it's bad. And I mean, I'm not kidding around here. This is got... I mean, who writes Mayhaps? Somebody... Honestly, the whole thing to me reads like a committee sat down, got together with the market research firm and the VP of marketing and circulation, and said, "Here's the thing: we need to sell more games, and I need to make sure you put this, and this in here, and this is how it's going to work, and make sure that doesn't offend anybody under 12." I mean, it's just terrible.
Yeah, it doesn't look like Gary had any input on this comic book at all. So.
Oh, well, he was gone 3 years before this came out. This came out in '88, which was the last year that there was still first edition. And Gary was pushed out by '85. So this is definitely, I don't think he would have ever gone for this.
Yeah, this was on this was the twilight of the first edition, and we're going into second edition in just a year.
Yeah, so, they're drawn literally. I mean, basically somebody just said, draw superheroes, but stick some swords in their hands.
Yeah. So just to finish up the story real quick. So
sorry.
In case the people out there really care, I mean, someone may want to go grab this because it does give you a little bit of ideas, and at least it has the cool stuff in the back that you can use for your...
I like that.
Yeah.
No, I like that.
So they travel to this town, they actually find this beggar, and they give him some money and whatever, and then they go into this tavern where this uber-powerful woman shows up with some bracelet we have no clue what it's about, but supposedly she's some...
Yeah, like she's a gladiator or something.
Some massive gladiator. They have no back history on that, so what the hell? And then they go in this back room, and they all meet each other, like, they're just going to let this...
typical, you all meet at an inn.
Yeah, pretty much typical meet at the end, no questions asked. And then they decide, well, we need to go do something, and then all of a sudden they hear some ruckus outside, your typical what happens in a game. Yes. And they go outside, and that bum that they gave the money to is getting the crap beat out of him. So they beat the crap out of those guys, and they find out it's the paladin they've been looking for the whole time, and that's where the story ends.
I see.
Really, that's the story.
Wow.
Oh, it's just the writing is great.
The dialogue is
weird.
Yeah. Well, it's like
those young hooligans are beating the life out of that poor beggar. Yes. 'Twill be a singular treat tearing into those sewer rats. Arg. Ha ha ha.
Well, it's like when the monster thing where he says, "Far better to beg a quick death from me and be grateful for it." He says the spells flesh to stone.
Yeah.
He says flesh the stone, and then he says rock to mud.
That's where I got the marketing director was in here because he said make sure that you use the names of the spells.
Yes, it's like they're playing, like rock paper scissors.
Although I have to say that's not a bad idea. Flesh to stone, rock to mud is a pretty good combination of spells.
Oh, don't get me wrong. I like the idea.
Yes.
Yeah. So next time, Jason, you're going to review issue number 2. No, I'm just kidding.
I think what I'll do next time is I'll just do a dramatic reading of issue number 2. I don't know who the big bad guy here is, the one that's drawn like a cross between Grover from Sesame Street and some sort of a Viking orc.
Yeah.
With, the Hulk's legs.
Draconian, yeah.
Is that what he is?
I think he's a Draconian, yeah.
I just love the part where I don't know, page 16.
Yeah.
He's thinking his grand plan so that you know what's going on. His little George Bush laugh there. Waterdeep is but a trifle, Captain. I harbor designs against the entire world.
That's pretty good.
I mean, no, you know what? Saturday morning cartoon level, it's actually pretty spot on for that.
Yeah,
and I remember Saturday morning cartoons, and that was cool. But no, I would say if you're getting this comic, get it for one of 3 reasons. Get it because you're a collector and you like to have cool stuff, because it's cool for that. Because you want some kind of neat ideas, because like you say, the characters are written in the back. They've got so some of that stuff's okay. Or, you want it for the kitsch value.
And you're not going to go broke picking these things up, because I actually took a peek before the show, and they're maybe going for like $1 a piece. So.
Oh, well, then that's one of the rare cases of a comic selling for less than its cover price, because it's only $1.25.
The Stone, the Flesh, Rock, the Mud combo.
Yeah,
I like that.
That's pretty good.
Well, now our producer's telling us here that Jan Duursema is known for her work on the Star Wars comics.
Is that the current Star Wars? I'm wondering, or maybe it was the one that was made by Dark Horse.
Well, we should look that up, because this is the thing, is that there's not a writer out there that hasn't gone and done something just to get paid at one point or another in their life. So it's totally possible that Jan Duursema, there's two U's, so I don't know how to pronounce this, that Jan Duursema could be a great writer who just took the paycheck and walked.
She did the Marvel Star Wars comics, which were A+ comic books back then.
They were good?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Star Wars,
yeah.
So it's totally possible.
But Matt is also telling us that the writer, Fleischer...
Harlan Ellison, in 79 interview, described Fleischer... Well, there's one I will not
read. They can't say that one, but...
But crazy, certifiable, twisted, derangio, and lunatic.
I like derangio. But, but here's the thing. I think if I'm calling a writer crazy, certifiable, twisted, derangio, lunatic, and bug, blah, 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 then those sound like compliments.
Yeah.
Those don't sound like bad things.
And so it gets the story gets even worse in issue number 2, because I just took a peek at issue number 2 after reading this again for the show, and basically they set out, and this paladin guy, who they figure out is the great paladin, the savior of the world, he's pretty much riding along going, I don't care, I don't want to help. And then there's a couple moments...
Oh, he's an emo.
Yeah. He's pretty much depressed, and then there's a couple times they're like, come help us, in the middle of a fight, and he just kind of lays there like, and he doesn't really do anything. And then he goes to pick up the sword, and he can't do anything. And he throws the sword away, and he's like, I am not the man I used to be. And he just walks off.
Well, okay, maybe they're trying to do some character development and get him to whatever, but honestly, I don't care.
Yeah. So, we'll rate this comic book for anybody out there out of 10. Jason?
Okay, so is this like armor class where a negative is better?
No.
Because...
1 to 10 scale, 10 being the best, 1 being the worst.
Yeah, 1 to 10, I would say this is some sort of mineral. I don't even think it gets a number.
Yeah, but don't forget the valuable story plot. Never mind.
No, I would say that it hurt my eyes.
The artwork even hurt your eyes too?
Everything hurt my eyes.
Well, don't forget it's 80s style artwork.
No, there's no such thing as decade-specific anything. There's good and there's bad. I can show you something from 1960, 1980, 2010. Yeah, you won't know what year it is. You'll just know if it's good or bad. This is bad.
I don't know if it was bad, but...
1988. You know what was going on in 1988?
Yes.
Neil Gaiman was doing
Begins.
The Sandman with who's the artist? Dave McKeon.
Yes.
I mean, some of the best stuff the comics have ever seen.
Some of the best stuff for the X-Men series was going on in that time too.
And that was
Grant Morrison was doing his thing. I mean, 1988 was a golden age for comics.
And wasn't that when the Batman movie came out with Michael Keaton? Was it 88?
89.
Oh, 89. Okay.
So there's no excuses.
I know in 88 was the Dark Knight comic was out, so that was one of the best Batman comics they had. So.
Oh, yeah. Alan Moore, right?
Yes. Believe so. So, Nick, what are you rating out of 1 to 10, and don't give me a mineral.
No. I would say...
Oh, Frank Miller did the Dark Knight. Sorry about that.
Well, again, Frank Miller, another genius.
And yeah, another one.
I would give it... There's the redeeming value I see out of this is the stuff at the end, the stats for characters and new monsters and maybe new magic items. So for utility wise, 2.
I'm actually going to give it a 4 because it does get better as you go along, and the artwork I think changes along the way as the artist actually finds themselves. And it's kind of interesting. I don't know. Maybe I'll go with a 3. If anything else, just pick it up just to read it, like Jason said, to have it, because it's something cool from the past, and to have the stats and information about new monsters. And they did have a cool address. At least the DC comic for this comic book was on 666 Fifth Avenue.
Yeah, I noticed that.
Did
they still at that address?
No, they've moved.
666 Fifth Avenue. I think I used to work right near there, actually.
That explains a lot.
DC, yeah. DC.
That's actually a pretty well-known address. Let me see where the heck that is.
There's a lot of publishing firms on that.
Is that the deal?
Yeah.
Oh, you know what? I think that's where the Unicoro store is now.
Yeah,
okay.
DC's long moved from that office. They actually, half them are based out of Los Angeles now, so.
Okay, yeah, I know right where this is. This is I go by this building all the time.
Oh, the building's a 666 building. That'd be kind of cool to walk past it just to see it.
Yeah.
All right, so we're gonna wrap this up, and next week maybe I'll give you guys a Spelljammer one to even hit you worse.
Oh no!
Wait a minute, that's not this edition. That's another edition, so you can't use it.
You know what? Here's another one for listeners. We haven't had any listener requests for things in the library yet, and if we have, actually, I apologize for not remembering.
This was a request.
Okay, well. Who was that?
I don't remember. Who was that? It was way back from issue 4 or something.
Send them a virus in their email. How dare they?
Nick. You know what, Nick?
No, it's fun.
Your punishment is to read
I'd like
issue
some
2.
Requests. So if anybody's got a favorite book or film or comic or anything else they'd like us to check out, it doesn't have to be specifically in the first edition universe, just something that listeners would want to know about.
Yeah.
Ask us, because we like to have our horizons expanded.
We're still waiting on that Dying Earth review you were going to give.
Yeah, Jason.
Yeah, I know you are.
I think Jason's still waiting for the review himself. So
I certainly haven't written it. Honestly, that's one of those things where I don't think that I'm qualified to review.
Did you know that there was a Jack Vance Dying Earth RPG?
Yeah, I've seen that. I should actually give it a try. I bet it's pretty fun.
Yeah, it's called Dungeons and Dragons.
No, it's not. There's an actual RPG for it.
No, there really is.
There really is, Nick.
Yeah, there really is. I'd like to check that out.
I just saw it on Amazon maybe a year ago. I remember reading about it.
Oh, if it's a good price, pick it up.
I don't know. Anyway, that'll wrap up the library this week as we travel back down the stairs of the tower, back into the main control room. Oh, never mind.
I like that until you had a control room. I like that. You need a control room.
Yeah.
All right. We're going to go into our, guess what, audio drama this week, guys.
We have an audio drama?
Yeah.
Well, really?
We have a new audio drama. Hope everybody's going to like it. It's called The Lumpers. I think it'll be very cool. So everybody take a listen.
It's tough out there. Orcs, goblins, dragons, bad mad mages. Things that each give you the time of day. People that shake your hand while looking for a place for a dagger. Yeah, it's tough. So they're tougher. They're the Lumpers. Ready?
Sure, sweetie. Go ahead.
Okay, the case of spare parts. Puddleton's always nice this time of year. It was the beginning of the hot season, but not so hot as to be obnoxious. The breeze off the sea helps. Keeps the nights from sweltering, too. It was early evening. I just ate downstairs after a bit of effort. A small, skinny guy in a dark hooded cloak kept pestering me to come over to the corner booth to show me something. One called to Mars the barkeep, and he was out in his ear. Adventuring stops at mealtime. Afterwards, I walked upstairs and sat at the desk doing my cleaning. The sun was hanging low, and I just put down Lucille and started in on my daggers when the talk stone on the desk glowed. I tapped it. Yes, Syl, I said, shining the dagger.
There's someone here to see you. Dwarf. Says it's important.
Always is. Send him in. Syl flew in, followed by a short figure dressed in leathers and wearing a small cloak. I was a bit dumbstruck. Up until now, I thought female dwarves didn't exist. For all I knew, they'd hatched out of the rocks. The dwarf approached the desk with a grave look on her face.
Here you go, sweetie. This is Mr. Lumper. He'll treat you right.
Syl then flew over to me, looked me in the eyes, gave me that behave yourself look, and fluttered to the door before turning to me.
I'll be going for the evening then. Good night.
Night. Be careful, she giggled.
Oh, please.
I pulled up a chair in front of her. Please sit down, Miss
Moria,
she said in a soft voice. She had a surprisingly voluptuous figure, something I didn't know dwarves had, with an open face, turned-up nose, and full lips, topped by long, fiery red hair done up in braids, plus not a hint of beard. It was the eyes that got me. Blue, the color of the inner sea. Someone could get lost in those eyes. Some probably had.
Mr. Lumper.
Call me LoJack, I said in my most comforting tone. Just a minute. I tapped the talkstone twice. Byron, Dinkus, come in here. We have company. The door to my right opened and Byron came in, removing his leather apron. He was impeccably dressed as usual, even for spell research. He rolled his sleeves down and came over to the desk, smiling all the way. How do you do, madam? He spoke with a hint of suaveness in his voice. Byron Craddock, late of the Elven Court, at your service. Very late, I muttered. He ignored me, walked over, took her hand, and kissed it. I was temporarily blinded as my eyes were rolling back in my head. Now, what can I do for you?
Well, it's...
She started to stutter when the door on my left opened and a plume of smoke came out, followed by our resident dwarf and mechanical genius, Dinkus McThud, who was wiping the soot off his face with a cloth. That'll be a good one. Byron, need your help later. Got a wee problem in that gyro and I think some magical... He looked up and stopped short. Moria, he blurted. Moria Dundle! He ran over and gave her a big hug, something that'd break a strong man's ribs. She returned the favor. Lassie, so good to see you. I haven't seen you in years. What you doing here? How's your father and brothers? She gave Dinkus another hug and then started crying in his arms. He gently led her down into a chair.
It's about my brother Angus that I'm here. He hired out on a merchant caravan heading up north from here, and I didn't come back. No one knows where he is. I asked at the merchant house, warehouse, and the constable. No one even remembers him.
She broke down again. I pulled out a small bottle and cup, poured out a bit, and gave it to her. She drank, coughed, and relaxed. I could see Dinkus starting to redden up in the face, so both Byron and I came over and kneeled on either side. Milady, Byron spoke in a soothing tone, please, tell us everything you know about this enterprise your brother was on.
Well,
she stuttered.
Angus heard about this caravan and insisted that father let him go. He's the baby, and seeing his brothers go off to fame and adventure made him determined to do the same. Father refused, saying he was too young and that he wanted him to learn the family trade. We've lost 2 others, and Father didn't want it to be 3. Next thing we know, Angus packed some things and left in the night, leaving a note saying he joined a merchant and had passed through town. Father was furious and went out to find where he went. That's been a fortnight ago, and we haven't heard from Angus or Father.
She started sobbing again. I gave her a cloth. But lass, Dinkus said, fighting back rage, how'd you end up here?
I found the merchant he went with, and Angus told him that he was heading to Buddleton for a job. I remembered you were around here, and I'd come to see if you could help.
She hung her head. Byron and I got up, looked at each other, and grabbed Dinkus. He shook us off. In other words, after we picked ourselves up off the floor, I walked over to Moria. Could you excuse us for a minute? I said, looking hard at Dinkus. We need to talk. She shook her head yes, and we led Dinkus into the other room. Okay, I said to a hot McThud. First off, calm down just enough to answer a few questions. How do you know her? Dinkus spoke haltingly. Her father, Umla Durndal, was me closest friend. She's my goddaughter, and I will break open this world to find out who did this to him and his son. Okay, I got that. What's the boy like? I hadn't seen him for quite a while, but the boy's pretty much the runt. Always wanting to do great things like his dad, that sort of thing. I remember Umlet telling me that he'd make a good blacksmith. He's got the building strength, but he wants him to stay home. He was my boy. We'd be eating Eddins for lunch. Okay, now just calm down. I told Byron to open the door. We walked in. Maury was still in the chair sniffling. Miss Dundle, we'll be happy to help in any way possible. I'll have my assistant draw up a contract.
But I don't have...
She stammered. It's okay, I said, patting her hand, just for our records. We wouldn't dream of charging a single copper to such a fine lady and devoted daughter. Now it was Dinkus's turn to roll his eyes. Then Dinkus stood up, all 4 feet, and looked up at her eyes. Lass, wherever they are, I swear we'll find them. Yeah, my word as a member of Clan McThud. Another hug from her. I actually heard the wind get knocked out of Dinkus.
Thank you, Dinkus. Thank you all.
Oh, and by the way, Byron said, do you have that note that Angus left? It could be helpful.
Of course.
She opened a pouch and pulled out a small parchment. She handed it to Byron and, with a brave smile, left. I watched her go. Wow, I didn't think dwarves could wiggle like that. Byron was looking at the paper. Average grade fool's cap, cheap ink, good handwriting for a dwarf. Byron glanced over at Dinkus, who didn't react. Giving him an odd look, he continued. According to this note, he was leaving to find his destiny, a typical young one. And for Puddleton to take that job I saw posted outside the inn, don't try to stop me, etc., etc., etc. I can do a few tests on these and see what comes up. Yeah, you do that. Right now I was looking at Dinkus, who was sitting at the desk clutching his hammer in an unhealthy manner. Unhealthy for any other being, that is. I walked over. Dink was all I got out before his arm slammed into my chest, knocking me back into the wall. He was still sitting. I didn't think I could talk right now, was all he said. I did not want to be the orc or giant in his head at the moment. Byron, run those tests, and in the morning I'm going to check up at the local merchant houses and see if anyone has seen either of them. She's already done that, Byron shot back. I know. They talked to Beauty. Now it's time to talk to the beast, I said as I put Lucille and my daggers to bed. Also, go down to the Mages Guild and see if you can find any road wizards who work that caravan. Of course. Pleasant dreams, lover boy, Byron poked. Lover boy? Yes, ever since you walked in, you've had this rather stunned look on your face. It was quite obvious that you were infatuated with her. Oh, please, it's a job. A non-paying one. Strange, I never thought you'd be attracted to the likes of short-bearded females. Bearded? What beard? The one she obviously shaved off, Byron uttered as he donned his leather apron. What? Stubble, my boy. It was quite obvious. I grunted a good night to the wise guy elf, and he returned to his lab, humming some old bawdy elven tune. I headed down the hall to my room and left Dinkus where he was. I was sure he'd get tired eventually and head to bed. As I settled in, I had some pleasant thoughts about our new client. Now I know why dwarves keep their women under wraps. But that's later. Right now our clan is -2 members, and I'm hoping it won't be more. Music heard in this episode was by Incompetech.com. Voices heard in this episode were Glenn Hallstrom and Julie Hoverson. Tune in next time for another episode of The Lumpers.
Okay. Wow, that was pretty cool. I like the style, the execution of it. It's kind of like
I like it. You know what it reminds me of? What? And I know it's like what's the term I'm looking for? It's very
it's like a detective series from like the radio.
Yeah,
noir. A noir.
Yeah, it's like AD&D meets noir film.
Yeah,
which it should more often.
Yes.
You know, I've always wanted to just take an AD&D campaign and run it in a completely different setting, because there's nothing that says it has to be medieval.
Yeah, it's like a Michael Hammer kind of thing, or
Jan Hammer,
or
like,
Humphrey
definitely.
Bogart films. You know,
when he first
Sam Spade.
Sam Spade. There we were looking for.
Oh yeah, that's
Sam
right.
Spade. Yes,
good one, Matt. Good one. Glenn Hallstrom is the producer and writer and voicing. Actually, he did all the voices himself, and except for Julie Hoverson had her hand in some of the voices as well. I just remember her from one of the previous episodes we did. you might have recognized her voice in some of the scenes.
Mm-hmm.
So he put it together. We were just looking for something new, and he came up with this, and I was just like really surprised of how well it was put together, and it was something different.
And it's funny, and it's great. Yeah, I love it.
First of many to come.
Yeah, I signed him. Well, I shouldn't say signed him. I agreed.
Signed him to a 12-picture deal. He's got options on the back end.
No, really.
Let's do lunch.
What we did.
What's our percentage?
2. Him and I sat down one evening and we spoke, and we decided to do a 5-story arc. So
great.
It's only 5, just to see how it goes well with the audience.
Yeah.
So he doesn't. So basically, if it doesn't do well, which I don't think it'll do perfectly fine. I like it.
Yeah, I do too.
We want to hear what you think about it. So write us, rfistaff@gmail.com.
All right, I guess this will...
That's going to wrap the show, but I think Jason has a couple things he wants to say before we go.
Okay, yeah. So I'll talk about LowTechCon in just a second.
No,
but...
talk about it now. Go ahead.
I'll start with LowTechCon. Okay, so
is it now?
So LowTechCon update. Still selecting an exact date and place. I'm leaning towards November to do something that coincides with the New England Webcomics Weekend 2011. I would encourage anybody who's listening who's a fan of webcomics to look for the New England Webcomics Weekend, because this year's is coming up pretty soon. It's coming up in November. So maybe check it out. Maybe actually go. Let us know if you're going, because a few of us are going up from New York, and I'd love to meet up with some listeners if you're going to the New England Webcomics Weekend.
Yeah.
And maybe even, see if you think it's a good place for us to do LowTechCon. I've been looking around at some of the stuff we're going to be bringing up to the convention, starting to build up some of the video game and computer game things. We're going to be looking for suggestions on games to play, and I'll be opening up the forums at lowtechcon.com in about a week and a half, so we can actually get started with all of those plans.
Sweet.
But more immediately...
Give me a soda.
Yes. But more immediately, coming up in, rather than a year, coming up in about a week and a half on October 9th, it's going to be my birthday.
Happy birthday
to
Jason.
Too early. Too early. So it's going to be on a Saturday this year, which is convenient. And I decided, since I've got a couple of different gaming groups here in the city, and some of these guys have never met each other, I wanted to get them all together. And I figured if anybody else wants to come down, we're just going to spend the whole day gaming for my birthday. And it's just going to be we're going to call it JasonCon 2010. I figure if you got 20 people in a room playing at least 3 games, it's a convention, darn it. So
that's the criteria? I'll remember that.
I've just decided that off the top of my head.
Cool.
We're trying to pick a location. It's either going to be, we're looking at a couple of the hotels that are right next to my house to just grab a meeting room, or more likely we're probably going to pick the back room of a bar in the East Village. There's a couple that we're talking to, and just spend the whole day Saturday from like noon to 6 just gaming. So if anybody's in New York City, or you happen to be coming to town that weekend, drop us a line, because we're just going to be gaming all weekend, or all day.
Tell you what, my next game weekend, or my next game night is then.
Mm-hmm.
I will
nice.
I'll Skype you during the game. And we usually start around 5-6 o'clock. I don't know if you're going to go any later, but I'll Skype you, and we'll have like a remote JasonCon over here in Ohio.
Nice.
So.
Yeah, we're probably gonna wrap up around 6, maybe a little later, because we need to have some time for the civilians to come in the evening and actually like go to the bar. So
So is there going to be music and people like announcing and welcome to JasonCon 2010?
If I can find my Castle Grayskull, like if I can find my Castle Grayskull microphone,
that'd be
I'll talk.
Awesome if you had that still.
My old roommate back in Iowa was in a punk band called Iowa Beef Experience, and he sang through one on stage.
What? Iowa Beef Experience? What a name!
No, look him up. Good band.
But he sang through a Castle Grayskull?
Yeah, he sang through a Castle Grayskull microphone.
What?
You know, like he actually would bring the Castle Grayskull Mountain. Because remember there was the Castle Grayskull Mountain and the little microphone you could make the Skeletor voice with?
I'm Skeletor. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, so that he would just... Yeah, so he brought it on stage.
It's so Tom Waits.
That's awesome.
It's like something Tom Waits would do.
Oh,
yeah.
The only thing else I could think of is that in October, probably a week after your birthday, I'll be going to King Richard's Fair up in Carver, Mass.
Oh, huzzah!
Yeah, so if anyone's going
What's
up that way,
fair?
King Richard's Fair.
Oh, cool!
It happens every year around end of September into the middle of October.
Wow!
It's a big festival, and it's really cool because there's like events there, and there's jousting, and there's like they have a live chess game with people. Mm-hmm. Like people act as the chess pieces. It's really cool. And there's like things you can buy, and there's like the king walking around that you can not bow to if you don't want to. And,
does the knight jump the queen?
No.
That was really bad, Nick. And on that note, we're going to end the show.
Oh, no.
Actually, on that, I want to ask...
That's for all the cleric comments.
Yeah, I guess so.
Actually, on that note, I want to ask you guys and anybody who's listening, go back and look at Dragons number 83, 86, and 89.
Why?
That, for some reason... they're all by the same artist, and they all have chess-themed covers.
Yeah, it's a chess motif, and it's really cool.
I want to know what was going on. Somebody let me know. Okay.
Fine. Keep it original, keep it old school, and what's the rest of the phrase, Nick?
Knight jumps queen?
No. Good night, everybody.
Nice.
Roll for initiative.